Hey, True Believers England team here with Dalton the Authenticator. We're going to talk
Hello,
about...
everyone. I guess today I am the angry voice of the Middle Earth lore.
You have to be. One, I'm not that big of a fan of Lord of the Rings, and two, as we're going to talk about, this show is this show. I mean,
yeah, the only thing that keeps one awake with it is the stuff they got wrong in the lore. If you care about the lore,
I don't give a one way or the... Okay, so here's the thing. I do recognize enough that this person's supposed to be Galadriel, but let's face it. It's not the Galadriel that is in the movies. They are doing their whole own thing. It's supposed to be. So hold on. It's supposed to be, but Amazon said, you know what, you guys, we're just going to throw everything away and we're making our own stuff. And to me, it was only ever advertised as being a showcase for Black and gay actors. It was never, they never talked about the story. I never saw anything like that. And once again, I am absolutely the normie here, but I do want to talk a little bit about the lead up to this show, because that's literally all I ever heard about it, was how it's going to be gay, and how it's going to be just filled with people of color, and how it's just going to
and girl boss Galadriel.
Yeah, Galadriel. I am woman, hear me roar, Galadriel, which is ignorance, because I always, and I've said this so many times, that you don't make a strong woman by writing weak men. You write a strong, one of the ways, if you're going to include men into it, you make the men strong and you have them respect the hell out of her. That's what happened with the original Galadriel, played by Cate Blanchett.
And since you just threw us right in there, let's actually talk about Galadriel for a minute, shall we?
Horrible character. Absolutely horrible character. She was a character, for what I saw, she was a caricature. Now, just to explain, I saw the first 20 minutes. I don't know how long it felt like an hour for us to get to this thing. It was an ice troll or something that attacked them.
Yes. Yeah.
And I swear, like almost right after that, I fell asleep, and I didn't wake up until the end, where this guy walks into a bar. He's like, I am Black Elf, you know, and it was like, he tears off his hood and introduces himself as if I'm supposed to know who this character is. So I was like, yeah, okay. But anyway, Galadriel.
Yeah, Galadriel. Here's the thing about Galadriel. Galadriel has always been a powerful character, but there are different kinds of power, you see. Galadriel has never been a warrior. Galadriel is one of the perfect showcases for something that we've always said about female characters who are supposed to be powerful. Galadriel is the example of a character whose power is her femininity, because her main power, as with most of the elves, is not physical in nature. It's something that Tolkien referred to as their Fea, their spirit, the source of their magic. And Galadriel is essentially one of the oldest and most powerful of the original elves of Noldor. So to take this incredibly powerful, incredibly feminine, protective, manipulative energy that is Galadriel's power, and just turn it into, we're going to make her Xena warrior princess or Buffy the Vampire Slayer and give her a sword, it does not make Galadriel seem more powerful, you dunces.
Well, it seems as if it was just lazy. Like the writers were only able to think of one version of power, which is a masculine, by the way, version of power. One of the things I'm always kind of weirded out about certain waves of feminism, actually all of them, is that they believe the way to make women better is to make them more like men. It's completely ridiculous.
And to make men better by making them more feminine, and that's, you know, better men are more feminine, better women are more masculine. It doesn't make any sense. We do complement each other with all of our strengths and weaknesses. And writers like this just don't get it. So here's another thing. She's supposed, from what I understood, she was supposed to be a princess, and she's outside and she's playing and she's making a boat. She's like, hey, this boat isn't going to float. It's going to sail.
And actually, it's kind of cool because when it was in water, it folded out into a swan. But then these kids are like, "Hey, princess, you!" and they start throwing rocks at it. Like why are you bullying a princess? Because this is Game of Thrones times. You're about to get your heads cut off.
Speaking of things we need to talk about, Galadriel is the son of the High King of the Noldor elves. The elves from freaking Valinor. You literally see the two trees of Valinor in one shot. These are the Elder Days, the days of the trees in Tolkien's lexicon. Number one.
Well, the Lorax speaks for the trees.
Okay. Put a pen in that. Number one, elves don't age, you morons. They don't really have what men would consider a childhood. The original elves were sculpted from scratch by Eru Iluvatar and then given life. They were basically made of clay. And the second generation of elves aged up incredibly quickly. So what? Was she literally just born 5 minutes ago? Is that what I'm supposed to take from this? And I know the practical reason. The practical reason is we have to get a younger actress because Cate Blanchett is getting up there in years, and we don't want to tie this too closely to Peter Jackson's movies anyway. I get it.
Yeah, but I get that.
But elves don't age is the problem. So it needs to at least look like a very similar look to the look she had in at least the flashback scenes in the beginning of the prologue of Lord of the Rings, because that was Galadriel during the time when the rings were being forged, i.e., the time that's supposed to be fairly concordant with this whole rigmarole here.
Well, I'm going to tell you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Secondly, once again, Galadriel's power is a feminine power. Her power is the power of persuasion, the power of manipulation, the power of healing. That's why she's given the elven ring of water known as Nenia, and why she uses its power to protect Lothlorien from the ravages of time. That's why Galadriel's forest.
I don't want to go too deep inside baseball here.
Okay, but point being, why is she carrying a sword? This is a character who
because and here's the big problem, and I know this will probably be our quickest review, because normally we go through the story and everything. I can't do that. In all honesty, I don't want to do that because I ended up falling asleep. I don't do that when I'm watching a new show and I know I'm going to be talking about it, like Lord of the Rings. I don't like to fall asleep because I like to be informed about what I'm speaking. This is the least informed I've ever been in a review because I refuse to not watch something before I talk about it. But the thing is, I'm not going back to see that 30 or 40 minutes that I missed. You
didn't miss anything. It was entirely filler. Filler.
The entire episode was filler to me. There was nothing of substance. Here's what happened in that first 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 700 hours, as it felt, part of the show that I watched. Galadriel gets bullied. She grows up. She's after Sauron. I know where he is, person that's walking with me, whom, in all honesty, do we really care what his name is? But wait, everybody wants to go home. No, we shall forage on, but it's dangerous. Get to the next set. We all want to go home. No, we will forage on. Get to the next set. We all want to go home. No, we will forage on. There were 3 different scenes that used the only information you got was the information you got from the previous scene. There was no building of a story. There was no building of a plot beyond what we got in that first scene with them, and it put me to god dang sleep. There was a freaking icy cave troll of some sorts, and I was like, oh, come on, just, are you kidding me? She beats a freaking snow troll, or what was it, ice troll or something, by herself.
And again, it's
not even looking at it. She's like, oh, it's behind
and
me
again,
now here.
It's the way she does it that pisses me off. Because if you guys remember the Hobbit movies, you know, the Hobbit movies weren't as good as the Lord of the Rings movies, fair enough. But if you guys remember the Hobbit movies, you remember the scene where the White Council expels the shadow of Sauron from Dol Guldur. And Galadriel, by herself, walks in there. She sees the biggest and strongest of the orcs, it tries to rattle her. She waves her hand, and it is reduced to ash in the same way that when Thor hits the rock giant in Thor: The Dark World, it's one-shotted with one strike of his hammer.
Well, she did this time with a sword, and she didn't even look at the monster. So if you're going to do that, look to the original Lord of the Rings movie, where you have Aragorn, Boromir, the hobbits and everything fighting this cave troll, and it looks like there's effort to it. There was no effort. By this time, I'm out. I am checked out of this show.
And again, if you want to show elves fighting, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but elves don't fight on the physical plane. That's what makes elves so dangerous. The entire universe of Lord of the Rings was spoken into existence, and the elves are one of the few races that remember how to do what are called words of power, words of command. That's why in the first Lord of the Rings, you see Elrond's daughter and Aragorn's future wife there. She sings a song, or she says an incantation, and an entire river crashes on one of the Nazgul. That is the way elves fight. Elves consider physical combat to be primitive and like uncouth and lame. To have the High Princess of the Noldor, Galadriel, wielding a sword would be considered to be like crass and beneath her station.
Oh, there you go. Then that's just the inside stuff, because I'm coming in as a straight up normie on all this. I like the Peter Jackson movies. I even like the Hobbit movies. Like you said, less than the Lord of the Rings, but ultimately I think they're decent to watch. You
want to watch a good Hobbit movie? Watch the animated one from 1977. I agree with you.
That was a good Hobbit. There. Yeah. Are you mental? I was there. Yeah. By the way, that's from Wayne's World. I'm not actually questioning your mentality. I already know you're crazy. But yeah, those are excellent Lord of the Rings movies. These were the Peter Jackson obviously were awesome. I'm going to wrap this one up, and I'm going to be completely honest. I don't give a shit about episode 2. I really don't. I don't give a shit about episode 1. I watched the beginning, fell asleep, watched the end where the guy comes out and he's like, "Oh, there's black milk coming out of the cow. Where did they feed?" How about just like letting us in on the story, okay? In the beginning of the Lord of the Rings with the Peter Jackson films, we knew exactly what was up before everything went going. They are acting like there's this big mystery that we need to go along and solve with them. I don't give a about some poisonous patchy grass on the outside of who gives a shitville. It just doesn't. I mean, this show is look. I am the easiest guy in the world to please. Seriously. And this show pissed me the off by just being boring as fuck.
Yeah,
at least say what you will about the Marvel shows. I'm on a rant, dude. Say what you will about the Marvel shows. Say, there are some I don't like. There's some I like. Falcon and the Snowman. I'm actively think that show is bad.
Winter Soldier, but yes.
But it is so, at least it's so bad it's entertaining. At the very least. This show, I'm not going to say it was dog crap because of what you're saying it is. I don't have that knowledge. It was dog crap because somebody going in who doesn't know will still not know after an hour and how many minutes of their life has been wasted.
And if they wanted to do a prologue like at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, which is I think what they were trying to do when they were talking about the destruction of the 2 trees and going off to Middle Earth and so on and so forth. If they wanted to do that, there's so much they could have done with that. You could have even substituted the rings for the Silmarils in an opening monologue, which, by the way, the Silmarils and Feanor never get mentioned. The fact that it was Galadriel's beauty, at least in part, that inspired them, the way her hair caught the light of the 2 trees of Valinor, never mentioned. Melkor or Morgoth doesn't even get half a mention, and then it's off to Sauron. It's like, so you literally just skipped over everything that was worth caring about in the Silmarillion and in the appendices and in the unfinished tales, and now you're telling your own thing, wherein the incredibly powerful sorceress Galadriel sullies her honor by using a sword instead of using any words of command at any point. It just,
I'm going to tell you something, Dalton, and this. I'm going to tell you this as a friend. Find just some guy or someone who knows this stuff with you. I don't. I am not the right guy to team up. I think you and I think our reviews have been a lot of fun. I really do. I like going through the stories and talking about it, and sometimes you hate it, I like it, or vice versa. I think that's very fun. But in this instance, I am straight up ignorant, normal person coming in here. I don't know the lore. The only thing I could say is I can answer this question in terms of bad. Is Lord of the Rings Rings of Power worse than What If, which I consider the shit on the bottom of the shoe of the Marvel universe? Yes, I'd rather watch What If than I would Lords of Power. I am not going to waste one more minute of it. I know I should, because probably dissing on this show could probably build up my
after 2 episodes or whatever, but whatever. But
yeah, well, I'm sorry, they got me on one.
Yeah,
Sometimes you watch one
even
episode of a show and you know you love it. I watched one episode of a show and I said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm out.
Even if you're just going off of what the movies did, you know Galadriel at this point.
Yes.
You know that her power was always her femininity. You know that her beauty was the beauty that could stop 1,000 ships and so on and so forth. You know that her power exuded from her in such a way that everyone respected her at all times. And that was when her power was dying, when she was fading, and when she was diminishing. This version of Galadriel should be able to blink at a snow troll and it should just burst into flames. But no, none of that. None of the grand elder days. They don't even match the grandeur of the movies that came out 20 years ago, or even the less good movies that came out a decade ago. And yet they spent $1 billion apparently on these 8 episodes. And as much as I ditched on the Sandman, and I think most of my criticisms there were warranted, they had maybe a third of the budget of this show. They look the freaking same. They look almost identically the freaking same in terms of the VFX and stuff, which means that wherever the money is going, it's not on screen. And one of the things I always say with regards to things that spend a bunch of money, if you spend X amount of money, the one place it should definitely be is on the freaking screen. It was not on the freaking screen here.
Well, okay, I will say this. This is the one thing I'll say about the show. It was beautiful to look at. They really threw a budget into making that show look good. They should have thrown a lot of money at the script.
Yeah. And what's more, for all the pretty set dressing that the VFX handles, it looks empty. It looks non-distinctive. Like, you can't tell the difference between the various locations, really. Like, there's no aesthetic difference between even Valinor and Middle-earth in most cases. So, like, for all of the money they wasted on the VFX, the most I can say is things were properly rendered. But that doesn't mean they used it in any creative or meaningful way. That doesn't mean they used it to create interesting set designs or tell a story visually or anything.
Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is the beige of the Lord of the Rings franchise. It's
like if the quality of Game of Thrones' writing started with the last season's quality of writing. That's what it's like.
Okay, yeah, I talked a little bit about that before, and I'll tell you what. I'll say this: ALOISE wants to get together and talk about some Game of Thrones. She knows the lore. I'll get together with you. We'll pick a date, maybe Tuesday, Thursday, something like that, and we'll start talking about some Game of Thrones. I'm going to end it because I want to keep the minutes low on this one. Just to say, in a paragraph about that big, sum up your feelings for the 2 episodes you watched.
On a technical, artistic level, there is absolutely no reason to care about this. It is empty, it is wasted, and it is miserable. On a lore level, it is insulting, it is pandering, and it is ideological. And frankly, it is the direct antithesis of a lot of Tolkien's actual themes or meaning, because his stories were stories about the great days past and about nostalgia for the great days past. You want to know why this doesn't work more than anything else? It's because they insist on making a progressive story out of a story that is inherently about the death of wonder and the loss of innocence and how that's a bad thing, how technology and how mechanization ultimately destroys glory and wonder and the ancient days past. That's one of the reasons why this could not have possibly worked. It's because they're trying to take a story about how the loss of innocence and the loss of wonder are bad and turn those things into virtues.
Okay, I'm and my final, I guess, my final say before we call it here on this particular review would be that the Lord of the Rings: Rings of Power is very much the cinematic, or at least the televised version of getting creamed spinach at a Gordon Ramsay restaurant. Looks great, but it's creamed spinach. It's bad, guys. It's horrible. That comes from the normies. Thank you very much for hanging out. Dalton, thank you for joining. I know it's a shorter review than we normally do, but I think
well, I've got a show to do in like half an hour anyway, so
cool. You're probably going to be talking about this with somebody a lot better to talk about it with. We'll get to the Game of Thrones and whatever superhero stuff. Shoot, there's a Owen Wilson superhero movie out right now, so that might be fun to check out over at Prime. So anywho, guys, thanks for hanging out with us for a bit. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, and please comment on the video here to help the algorithms. And as always, Aloise, I do want to get together with you on the Game of Thrones. As always, guys, thank you very, very much for watching. Have a good day.
Cheers.